Esports United is proud to announce Canada's dedicated Valorant Collegiate Invitational. MECI Valorant begins with Western and Eastern Canadian divisions. Tune in on July 23rd and 24th for our West Division qualifiers and July 30th and 31st for the East Division. Find our socials at linktree/MeSportsUnited to stay up to date with more MECI news. Now enjoy the rest of the Canadian Intercollegiate Exhibition. We'll see you soon. Esports United is proud to announce Canada's dedicated Valorant Collegiate Invitational. MECI Valorant begins with Western and Eastern Canadian divisions. Tune in on July 23rd and 24th for our West Division qualifiers and July 30th and 31st for the East Division. Find our socials at linktree/MeSportsUnited to stay up to date with more MECI news. Now enjoy the rest of the Canadian Intercollegiate Exhibition. We'll see you soon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of the Canadian Intercollegiate Exhibition. Of course, I will be your host for today. My name is Jennifer, and we are joined today for the Revive BJet panel by Jordan, Benson, and Matt. So thank you all for being here. We'll start by getting some introductions done. So each of you, whoever wants to go first, just introduce yourself, tell everyone a bit about who you are, what you do.
I guess I'll go first. My name is Dr. Jordan Sai. I'm an orthopedic physical therapist. I've been working in professional esports for the last 4 years. I'm currently the team physical therapist for Cloud9 Esports as well as Evil Geniuses. I'm also a member of Secret Labs Board of Ergonomics Advisory. So I help them with research as well as designing future products, and I do some content for them as well. I also own and run a company called Respawn Therapy, where I provide outpatient physical therapy services and wellness services to gamers.
Awesome.
I'll go next. My name is Matthew. I work for the Crisis Prevention Intervention and Information Center of Northern BC. And while part of the job is like mental health crises, other part of the job is general mental health. We have like counselors and social workers and a bunch of other support networks. And I also manage the 3 Valorant teams for SFU.
That's great. I guess I'm next. My name is Benson. I'm the current president of TMU Esports. In the past, I've been a pro player for Counter-Strike, Overwatch. I've streamed under G2 Esports, and I've been kind of everywhere around esports so far.
Awesome. It is nice to meet everyone. So we'll get into some icebreaker questions. If you've been listening for the earlier this week, you'll know what these questions are. First one being, how long have each of you been gaming for? And anyone feel free to go first, jump in.
Thanks for going in the same order. I've been gaming for over 30 years. I started when I was 5, so that gives you an idea how old I am. And it was an original Nintendo. My cousin, who was living with us at the time, had the original NES system. That's how I got started.
I've been playing for like 13 years since I was like 3. um, uh, my parents had a Super Nintendo system that was in our basement, and I remember playing that for a very long time. And I think like RuneScape is like one of the earliest games that I played, and I have almost 20 years in that.
Yeah, and then for me, I've probably been over a decade since I was like 5 as well. I think my first console was like a PS1, so just like the old school kind of like PS1 games were my original ones.
Awesome. Actually, I gotta ask Matt, OSRS or do you play the new one?
The new one.
Traitor. Okay, so this kind of leads into another question. What is your all-time favorite game, and what game are you currently into?
All-time favorite is tough. I guess my all-time favorite is probably the Baldur's Gate series. If you're to like Dungeons and Dragons RPGs, that's one of my favorite games. Or Total War, but Total War is like such a vast series anyway. It's just the style of it I like. I still play the new one, Warhammer. But right now, the game I probably play the most is League of Legends. I work with a lot of LCS teams, so it like is something that I'm kind of always incentivized to be thinking about and learning about. helps me with some of the players that I work with. So.
For me, it kind of depends. It changes a lot actually. I tend to like always go back to like um, games like RuneScape or Rocket League. Um, I like competitive games a lot. I'm really a competitive person. I did like football in high school and a bunch of sports, and it just kind of like transitioned into competitive games.
And then for me, I think it's just CS:GO probably. I think that's the main title that got me into esports. It's my first competitive title, and it kind of teaches you a lot about different games, especially with like the whole ecosphere when it was around, like the whole trading thing, how it started, kind of like the whole loot box thing, and it's really interesting to see how it's still a main competitor nowadays, even a decade later.
Mhm. Definitely, it's I haven't played CS:GO, but it's interesting that every time I talk to someone who plays CS:GO, they always talk about their loot boxes first. It is the only thing they talk about and always the first thing they talk about. I'm like, sure, I guess.
I mean, it's like a
Uh,
$2,000 skin, you know.
I can't imagine that much, like, even like the Valorant skins, like the bundles, that's a little too high for me to pay for them. But I was like, you know what, 2,000 skins, okay, sure. You could. I'm gonna stay away from CS:GO. But anyways, so I guess Jordan, we'll start a little bit with you. What
Sure.
was your journey like, kind of going from, I guess, schooling to where you ended up now being working for some orgs and starting your own company?
I knew that in my last year of physical therapy school, I wanted to pursue a career in esports at some level. I've always, like I said, I've been gaming for my entire life. I've always felt like esports was something that I wanted to get involved with, but I was unfortunately born at a time when it didn't exist. So, by the time esports was really up and running and kind of popularized, I was in my late 20s to 30s. So it was like, I knew I wasn't going to be a player at any level. But I just love the industry. I've loved watching games. I've watched a lot of competitive CS:GO, StarCraft. That's how I got into it as well. And I knew that at some level I wanted to be involved with the industry. And I knew that watching a lot of these events and reading a lot of the articles that came out about players retiring early, some of the injuries that have occurred, all these issues that were kind of propping up more and more in the media. I was like, well, this is stuff that I treat every day as a physical therapist. These are all issues that I think are mostly preventable and almost across the board are preventable. So I felt like this is an industry and population that I could really help. And a lot of it is just education. So after I finished school, I was working full time. And as a side project, I started putting out content around health for gamers on Instagram and stuff like that. I kept trying to find teams to work with. And eventually I got lucky and I connected with C9. So that was the first org that I auditioned with. I worked with their CEO as the first person I ever worked with. And once he vetted me and thought, oh, you're pretty competent, then he allowed me to work with players. So since then, I've tried to expand more my marketing and branding and like really trying to teach teams and players like here are things that you can do that will help you, and a lot of it is just habit change. And so I've been able to be really successful in networking with all these different orgs now, different games, and trying to just help players understand how to take care of themselves as they compete.
Yeah, that's actually really awesome. I guess I never mentioned to you earlier, but I graduated from kin. So my
Okay.
initial plan was go physio OT, and then kind of the event and esports stuff started popping up, and I was like,
Hmm.
I ended up giving up OT or PT a little bit just to say, okay, let me try this out. But it's definitely like cool to see that you've gone the route and like this is where you are and you are involved at different levels. I guess with the players you work with, do you ever kind of look at them and go, well, this is a pro player? Like kind of like a bit of that starstruck because like you hear about them, you see them on TV, and
Yeah.
then you're like, hi, what hurts?
It's funny because it depends on which games, obviously. So there's a few players who I feel like I would be starstruck a bit, but the first team that I worked with was League of Legends LCS. I'd never watched League, I'd never played League. So when I first met them, I actually spent a good couple hours before I went over there researching as much as I could about each of the players I was going to see. It was Cloud9's 2018 roster. I was trying to learn who plays what role, what are these roles, like what is like what's their history, trying to get a feel for who they were, because I didn't know them at all. That wasn't a game that I followed closely or I'd watched, but since that first year, I've been obsessed with League. I've watched almost every LCS, LCK, all these different regions leagues, and I've followed very closely. And so now I definitely know more of the names. I would say the first player that I really felt starstruck by in any capacity was Perks. And so when C9 signed Perks, I was stoked because I'd been into the scene for a couple of years by then. And I was like, he's a big name. Like I watched him in G2, and it was like, I knew who he was. So when he came over, it was like, it's cool to meet one of the people I really saw as a superstar, and very nice guy. I worked with him for that whole season. He's really, really cool. Actually very down to earth. I think if I were to meet some of the CS:GO players that I used to watch or some of the StarCraft players, I'd also be pretty blown away. But yeah, as of right now, it's most of the league. It's actually changed now. So because I've met so many professional players that it's kind of watered that down a bit. I think there are still those superstar legends. If I got to meet Faker, I'd probably have a hard time talking to. But there's definitely less and less of those people. But yeah, it's really cool. I love that I get the opportunity to interact with them directly.
Yeah, that I can't imagine what that would be like. Even I think we had LCS in Vancouver, the finals one year, and it's just you kind of just see all these people around, and then you just pick people and crowd. You're like, I know who you are. I'm gonna turn around and not say anything because I'm gonna embarrass
Yeah.
myself real
Yeah.
quick.
I mean, they're pretty nice. You should just say hi. Be like, hey, I'm a fan. They're all super nice.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess Matt, we'll kind of go on to you because you have a bit of a different background, I guess, with the career you've chosen and working with the mental health crisis. So tell us a little bit about like what that's like.
Well, I mean, every day is a little bit different, I guess. I mean, worst case scenario, we're working with police to um, stop somebody from attempting suicide. But most of the days, what I do is just general mental health support, including promoting like things like self-care or trying to find like some sort of plan or structure for that person to get through their day.
Is that ever like too stressful on yourself when you get those really like critical calls?
Um, I have a background in pretty like chaotic jobs. I spent 4 years as a firefighter before, um, and part of the job for that was doing medical first aid, like paramedic stuff. And so that really helped me a lot in terms of staying cool under pressure.
Yeah, that's definitely something you need to do. You you definitely can't freak out on people who are already freaking out. Um, yeah, I think that's actually really cool. And I guess Benson, you manage a couple players and you're always managing people. So I guess how's that been with, everyone kind of becoming more aware of their mental health and their physical health and that they need to keep it up?
I feel like that's definitely an unexpected or like overlooked thing, especially when like you get amateur players or people aspiring to be pros. I definitely went through that path when I was like a 15-year-old, just playing CS:GO all the time and trying to like climb the ladder. So I'd play like 12 hours a day, and then I experienced all those issues that a lot of pros had. So I'm like, hey, I experienced this. I see all these up and coming pros doing the same thing I did. So it's kind of like something I feel like the need to prevent, and it's something that people like Jordan, for example, like really help treat because esports players don't have that exact medical background, right? So it's something that's entirely necessary, and it's a growing trend, I would say, because nowadays esports is so competitive. You have like 30,000 people in Immortal and Valorant, for example, trying to climb to Radiant, and the amount of people in that space now is just a little impossible to grind as hard because you always have triple the amount of people competing for the same spot. So people don't always check in on their health or their mental health as well. So it's really important to just always do checkups. And it's one of the things we encourage at TMU for like all of our players and staff as well.
Hmm. Yeah, you mentioned kind of the shift to grind, 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 work hard, 12 hours a day, no breaks, to hey, something's wrong. Like I need to change something, I need to fix something, but I'm not sure how. Um, I guess for you, Benson and Matt, coming from kind of the pro scene into more of like a leadership role, and I guess Jordan for being in the industry, what have you like? What do you think catalyzed that change in people? Like, why are we seeing now that people are caring about their mental health and caring about their physical health?
My opinion is that we're seeing the growth of the industry as a whole. And so, although this stuff has always been kind of on the radar, the amount of funding and the amount of attention that esports was getting wasn't really big enough to warrant it, honestly. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of older players suffered as a result of that, right? Like they just didn't have those resources available. But now that we're seeing teams investing millions into players, right, to sign giant contracts, fly them over, and all this stuff, this is just part of it. Like if you're going to invest that much money, you're going to try to ensure that this player delivers. And that oftentimes means we want to make sure they're pain free. We want to make sure that they feel mentally stable and they can perform at a high level. You're not paying them to come and sit on a bench. So I think a lot of orgs are thinking about the whole of like, if we want to be competitive, what is every little advantage that we can add that's going to give us the best chance of winning events? Because like was mentioned, there's so many players now that are aspiring to go pro that the competition level is through the roof. You don't see players making it to pro anymore just because they're good at the ladder. Like they have to have all the other intangible skills. They have to know how to play on a team. They have to know how to take feedback. They have to be coachable. They have there's so many other skill sets that dictate who makes it to pro now. It's like it goes beyond just if you're good at the game or not.
Mhm.
Also, I think obviously there's a lot of stress, right? It requires a lot of stress, a lot of focus, and to do that for long periods of time. I know some of our players when we do tournaments, they're doing like games back to back, and so they're playing like 6 games or more in a day. And if they're feeling anxious or depression, that affects their focus.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like a holistic view is really nice to be seen. That it I guess it started with orgs being able to fund that, and it's kind of trickled down to the player base. So I think that's a very good change to see, and I think that also is a bit reflective of our society. They are taking mental health more seriously, and people are recognizing like, yes, we need to take care of ourselves physically and mentally. But I guess kind of going back a little bit to the physical health, Jordan, what are you seeing are like the most common injuries that gamers have?
It really depends on the game, but when you think about gaming injuries, it's 99% of the time it's an overuse injury, which means that whatever game you play, whatever you're using the most is probably the area that I'd be most concerned about. So for League of Legends, for example, the click rate on the mouse hand is incredibly high. Players have very, very high APM with their mouse hand. And so what I typically see is tendinopathy of the extensor tendon and the forearm, which is the muscle responsible for lifting that clicking finger. Other games that are much more keyboard intensive, for example, like StarCraft comes to mind, Fortnite, you see a lot of issues similar on the keyboard hand because of the APM on that side. Fighting games, you're going to see a lot more thumb issues with console players. FPS games, you're going to see a lot more shoulder issues because they tend to play with their arms elevated and not supported. So when they flick and they're doing, long duration sessions of holding that arm up, their shoulders tend to get very sore. So it varies a lot. And actually, that's one of the interesting things about what I do is now, a lot of, let's say, a physical therapist who's coming into the scene without a lot of gaming knowledge or not a lot of familiarity with the specifics of each game, they're not going to see a lot of this stuff. They're going to treat everyone kind of generally. And I think that's one of the big areas that I've tried to emphasize with other healthcare providers that are working with gamers is that you have to think about the specific nuance of each individual game and how it affects the player. There's not a one size fits all. And a lot of the stuff that we understand as healthcare providers in the research doesn't apply to these people. Like the way that gamers sit in chairs is different than the way that a lot of people would sit if they were working on a computer. It's not the same task.
Mhm. Okay, I guess with Benson and Matt, is there anything that you've heard your players kind of bring up, or just like as a common thing of like, hey, I need to fix this, or how can I do this different?
I think a common problem for some of our players is sleep. They spend a lot of times with blue screens in their faces, and they play for long hours. And when it's late at night, they just can't get to bed, so they decide to play more, and that definitely affects their gaming the next day and their training the next day, and what they learned the day previously, actually, as well.
Yeah, I can definitely echo that. I think the top three things I see with most every single team I've heard, like every single semester I hear the same issues from the same three teams, is just exhaustion. Because if you're in the collegiate space, you're also a student as well.
Mhm.
So you had to juggle 2 scrim blocks every week, a tournament match, and you have 2 midterms the same week. So a lot of players do get burnt out really quickly, and it's pretty common for players to just drop out of esports, or if they really want to get into pro, they just drop out of school completely because they're too exhausted handling so much stuff that they just want to focus on one thing. And then the second thing is obviously just, especially for people who don't know how to take care of their bodies when playing games, a lot of it is just like physical issues, like a lot of wrist issues, for example, because they aren't really doing like workout exercise beforehand, right? Like stretches and everything. So they do get exhausted really quickly, and then it strains on their body. So we've had a lot of players say, "Hey, my back really hurts, my neck really hurts after playing." And the third one is just obviously just not taking care of their body sometimes. So, for example, we have a match at like 8 p.m. Some players don't even eat till then, which is kind of crazy to me. So, we always encourage people to always check up on each other and make sure that they're actually taking care of their bodies before playing. And it's something that's has to be taught nowadays because so many people have been on that grind mindset that they don't know about anything else. So, it's something that I think a lot of people need to emphasize, especially when managing a team and making a team elevate their performance as well.
Yeah, okay. So speaking about actually onus a little bit, um, obviously, players have onus and team managers have onus and org should have onus, but I guess where do you think that kind of balance and split lies between everyone, or is any one group kind of have more of a responsibility to like make sure, players are healthy and staff are healthy?
I think players, well, at least like generally how um, we currently stand in terms of like our resources as well. Players generally are in charge of themselves. Like they're the ones that know how they feel and stuff, so they can reach out, or they should be able to reach out. And managers are the ones that, well, are there to provide that support or help them find those resources that they need.
Yeah, I think it depends on the teams, but I think everyone should be somewhat responsible, right? We should try to educate people on how to take care of themselves. But at the end of the day, a lot of these players, especially rookies as they come in, are kids who are leaving their parents' home for the first time. And they're put into these pro orgs and expected to conform to a whole new lifestyle that they're just not used to. So I try to emphasize that orgs and leadership in those orgs need to have a stronger hand in guiding these players, especially the younger ones, into how to take care of themselves. I think that veteran players need to educate the younger players as well. Something I really try to stress with a lot of the rookies I work with is like, hey, go talk to the guys or guys or girls on the team who are veterans and have been here for a while, and they will tell you, how do I get here? Right? Your goal is to try to get to that status. You want to have longevity in this career. There's a lot of things that you need to consider and a lot of behaviors you need to adopt that you're probably not used to. So I think it's a combination of a lot of those things. And then org's also bringing in people like me and people like, these other specialists who can help educate the staff and the players on things that they need to do. It's all around, right? And the more that they hear that messaging and the more consistent that it is, the more likely it is to stick. Because that's one of the things that nobody wants to get lectured to. And so I never try to sit a player down and feel like, hey, you need to do all of these things or you're going to end up in pain and you're going to end up, losing your career. What I try to say is, look, you want to be the best at what you do, right? And you're not going to be able to get there if there are these other things standing in your way. So let me know how I can help you achieve those goals, right? If you want to see some stretches, I'll show you stretches. If you want to work out, I'll show you how to work out. But I'm not going to tell you that you have to do all of these things or you're not going to have success, right? It has to fit within the paradigm that you already live in, and we have to establish belief, and then that leads to habit formation. And in the end, it's like if you can get players to adopt habits, then you see real change.
Mhm. Yeah, I think something definitely I learned is I guess through my degree is just definitely take the small steps, but definitely make sure they fit within what each of your clients want. Because there's nothing worse that you can do is to push everything and anything on one person and then go, this is too much, and then they end up walking away, or end up injuring themselves because they just don't, like, I guess, resonate with what you're saying. Um, I guess then that kind of begs the question, like, what is there an ideal balance between physical and mental wellness, or is it kind of extremely player dependent, or is there one that you all three of you think that we should be working a little bit harder on?
I think you kind of hit it with the word balance, right? It's very individual dependent and it's very system dependent. I don't know if as long as you're in balance, that would be ideal for me, right? Like not everyone needs to work out as much as someone else does. Not everyone needs constant mental health coaching compared to other people. So I think it has to be very individualized, and it's about in the end of the day, when I mentor other people in the healthcare space about how to work with players and patients, it's always about trying to understand where they're coming from and meet them where they are. We can't attach a black and white rule book to how everyone should be operating. It has to be very fluid.
Awesome. I guess Matt and Benson, any thoughts on that, or is it kind of more of the agreeance?
I definitely agree. And also I think like certain situations call for like obviously like physical therapy for like accidents, but also mental health, right? There's like certain situations where people will have like mental health stresses where um that require more support or um even like additional professional support in some cases.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the growing trends now is definitely like a focus on mental health, especially with like pro players, just because of how much more stress there is competing for that spot. And I think that a lot of people definitely have been taking like mental health breaks. So a lot of like pros recently, or even streamers or people in the scene have been taking these extended mental health breaks. I think it's a good trend to be setting because nowadays, like I think one of the players mentioned they spend 14 hours a day grinding, and the issue is that it's so competitive that they stop that grind for one day, they lose out on being ahead on the leaderboard and everything. So since it's so competitive now and that everyone wants to get in the scene, I think mental health is taking a bigger toll now. But it doesn't mean that physical should be substituted, right? It's always that balance and finding that balance. But I feel like nowadays it's like the growing trend of just that mentality is starting to lurk up, especially with aspiring pros.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely balance is key. Um, which also may be a controversial question, but have either of you or any of you worked with some difficult players that are a little bit more stubborn and they're just like, I'm fine. I'm not in pain. I'm fine. I can keep grinding, kind of. Especially because a lot of them are young and some may not know how to ask for help or some may think that they're fine. But being, of course, a manager or someone who's in charge of their health can look at it from an outside view and be like, you're not fine. So I guess, have you had any difficult players and how do you kind of handle them?
Um, I think definitely for us, where you see that like firsthand, are we have like three teams that are compete at different levels, and our most competitive team has been playing for such a long time now. At their ability to stay focused is incredible. Like they can be down like on like 10-2 and they can come back and they'll win at 13-10. Like they've done it multiple times actually. But our newer team, our junior varsity team, is really struggling with that concept of trying to stay focused even when you're down, or mentally, just when they're down, they're mentally they feel it, and it's hard to get in that mindset of staying focused.
Mhm. Are you finding that your players, the younger ones, have more of the solo queue mindset of FF15, FF5 rounds in, we're done?
Definitely, one of the biggest things. I mean, they're essentially like they do have like experience with like tournaments and things like that, but competitively, it's a different environment. And like the players are themselves, they're struggling with like team play. That's a different type of stress that they're not used to, because like it's 5 people, and honestly, getting along with all 5 people is a very difficult thing, and honestly, probably not going to happen in reality, right? Um, but getting along as best that you can with people and working with them. With the younger people, it's definitely more of a challenge with their first years.
Yeah, I think by your definition too of like, oh, I don't need help, I'm fine, as being difficult, I would say that's the majority of players I work with. um, I think the vast majority are usually everything's fine, everything's fine. What I found is I don't pressure them. I just accept like, hey, everything might be fine, right? Like there's a good amount of players who just don't have the issues, which is totally fine. I just tell them, I remind them, hey, I'm here if you guys need anything. I will help you if you need. If you have any questions, just ask me. And then occasionally I'll just check in on them. But for the physical health side, I also have to be honest with a lot of these players might just not have issues for years, and that's fine. If I start pressuring them, I start kind of bombarding them with information. A lot of times it almost pushes them away. So I try to just be a resource for them. I check in if I see anything. If I see them like doing this, I'll just ask like, "Hey, is your wrist feeling tight, or you having anything in your hands?" And sometimes that'll open the doors. A lot of times, just me asking will be like, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit stiff today," and I can show them one thing, and then that opens the door to demonstrate some value. And then in the future, they feel more open about coming up to me and asking stuff. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can definitely echo a lot of like what's been said so far. I think for some of our teams, especially, or like in the scene, especially like the collegiate and amateur scenes, one of the growing trends I think is the general like toxic mindset that a lot of players have, especially coming out of solo queue. You have players that are like really high ranked on the leaderboard, but they're extremely toxic. Whether it's communicating with teammates, their ability to like for team play and everything. I think that's something that definitely needs to be worked on, and it's more like a mental thing that we need to kind of break. We mentioned before a lot of like habits, right? And I think that's one of the hurdles that a lot of teams do need to get through, especially when you're recruiting talent that's not exactly from like the same background. So if you're recruiting them from like a different region, for example, they might have a different mindset and a different way they play the game, right? So it's kind of like breaking those habits and making it more of like a team environment rather than like forcing kind of like new changes to happen like on the spot. You can't. It's always a process. You can't expect it to happen overnight. So definitely working on that and breaking those habits is one of those things that I think should be focused on a lot more.
Mhm. Yeah, it's tough because you never want to push your players away, but you never want them to isolate themselves and just kind of be on their own and not be able to talk to people. So Jordan, you mentioned earlier like some of the common injuries being with was it wrist flexors?
Yeah, the extensors typically,
Wrist
but yeah,
extensors. Okay.
yeah.
Um, since that is the most common injury, is there something you'd actually recommend for people experiencing that right now? Or actually, maybe a better question, what does that feel like so people are able
Yeah,
to recognize that
sure.
and then what they can do to help that out?
Yeah, like I said, most of the stuff is overuse. So after extended periods of playing, stuff like that, you might feel pain or discomfort or tightness right at the elbow here. So if you can kind of see top of my forearm, you'll know you're on the right muscle if you kind of put your fingers here and feel and you try to lift your fingers. As you lift your fingers, you'll actually feel that muscle moving. So that common extensor tendon is usually the point of pain, and it usually just feels like either a burning or a sharper pain. If you push on it, it might feel like a deep ache, kind of sharp as well. So typically, if you're already feeling symptoms and it's kind of hurting, you want to stretch. So you want to be, fingers down. You can kind of pull your hand towards you, stretch that muscle out. And then long term, the only way to really improve those symptoms is to actually strengthen that muscle. So getting a weight or a resistance band and doing like wrist extensions slowly, kind of building up capacity of that muscle. If that hurts, then you could even downgrade or regress to just doing hand lifts. Just trying to move that muscle through full range of motion and building strength and endurance there is going to help a lot. Most tendon issues are really just a lack of strength of the tendon. It's a capacity issue. So the workload that you're administering is just too great for that tissue, so it gets irritated. Um, I usually try to avoid downgrading players like playtime until the last option. So I don't want to ever tell players that I work with, "Hey, practice less." Right? That's kind of the last resort. I try to build capacity first. I try to show them things that they can do to relieve symptoms first and stretch and all that. And then as a last resort, all right, if you're still having pain, then we do have to cut some of the hours, but then it's really important to prioritize what hours are you cutting. So for a pro team, the very most the most important is obviously stage matches. You're not cutting those. Below that would be scrims. You're not cutting scrims. So solo queue time. That's where we can start making effective change. Where we're like, okay, it's not that I want you to stop playing solo queue. I want you to break it into spots. So where a player might grind for 6 hours normally after scrims are over, I'm going to say you can play for 1 or 2 hours, and then you're going to take a break. You're going to stretch. You're going to do some other stuff, and you're going to come back and play another 1 or 2 hours. So you're actually just giving your body a chance to stay ahead of that inflammatory process and not irritate it even more. And then that allows you to then hopefully be able to participate in your scrim blocks and all the other stuff that's more important. But yeah, in summary, stretching first, strengthening, and then looking at scheduling how to, give yourself micro breaks.
Awesome. That's some really good advice. I hope everyone follows that, especially the OSU players.
Oh
Every
yeah.
time we talk to OSU players, they're always like, "Yeah, I destroyed my wrist at 13." I'm like,
I've actually worked with a couple, yeah, like just for fun OSU players. That game is so demanding because of what you have to do repetitively and with speed. It's like the worst combination of things, actually.
okay. So, I guess we'll switch a little bit gears to mental health with you, Matt. We do talk a lot about mental health, and I guess this might be a hard question. I don't know. But when we talk about mental health, like, in essence, like, what is it? And I guess what is it? Maybe what is it not? And I guess what are some common concerns or like, I guess, yeah, concerns or what are some common things like you're hearing from your players or even, excuse me, from your experience in the crisis hotline that people are bringing up?
Yeah. So, unlike physical health, mental health includes well, the emotional, psychological, and social well-being of a person. Um, it's not um, it's not uh, something that's always negative. It's not fixed. It's something that's not always in your mind, right? Um, and it's something that players shouldn't think about only when they feel broken. It's something that should be looked at or at least thought of, well, all the time. Um, some concerns that we generally have for gamers is the stress and pressure to succeed. Um, Players need to again perform and stay mentally strong, and um, that's hard, right? Just in general. Um, and on top of that, they're college students, and um, it's their first time away from home. It's their first time in the real world being adults. And on top of that, there's real world situations that pop up, like maybe a death of a family member or something along those situations. Um, and dealing with we have a roster of 22 people total. Um, I mean, it's everybody is different, definitely. You learn that in mental health. So working with so many people in games, the biggest thing um, I would definitely say would be a lot of anger is a big problem, um, and um, and what we do for anger and for motivation is we set goals or we create a space that's open for people to talk about, um, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's tough, especially I think especially as, collegiate coaches. Um, you also don't have all the answers for your players, and it's tough because you want to help them, but you're not sure how. But are there any resources any of you have found to just help guide you on how you can guide your players?
So one thing that um, that with playing so much that our players experience because of burnout is that everything does get boring eventually. Um, e- Even if it's a game that you enjoy, playing it 12 hours a day is exhausting. Um, and to help with that, having difficult short-term goals definitely helps keep motivation. Whether that's increasing your rank or um, maybe winning some championships, things like that. Um, that definitely increases motivation. But in terms of like helping like support players, it generally um, really supportive networks really help them best. We find so supplying our players with things like for example, there's programs like Bounce Back BC, or which is like a cognition training program, which helps additional supports, for example, which offers like online coaching for players that need or anybody really who needs help with things like stress or anxiety or help with depression. Um, and uh, yeah, I mean, it depends really. There's a lot of fact. I mean, mental health is very dynamic, right? So
Yeah, I can definitely echo a lot of like what kind of like the whole like team bonding things, because at the end of the day, you're getting like five students together or five players together that might not know each other fully well, especially over COVID, since everyone's kind of been playing online, right? It's kind of hard to make those connections. And if you're not really connected well, it can cause a lot more issues, right? Like, am I playing bad? Am I weighing down the team? Or some players even have that mentality, is like, I'm too good for this team, right? So you kind of gotta make those connections. And something that's happened from my experience, actually, when I was playing on a team, is that we felt like we weren't connected enough. So as COVID was kind of dying down, a lot of the limitations went. We actually did like a team bonding session where we went out, got food, and did stuff together. And that really made the whole mental state of the team a lot better, because you are putting faces to those voices, right? And by creating a more like team and more friend based environment, it's definitely a lot more beneficial. And I think that's really good for players' mental health, especially when they're just grinding all the time and you don't really know who you're playing with, right? So once you actually do make those connections, it feels a lot better to play together rather than playing selfishly, right? So you always got to make those connections and really make yourself available to trying new things as well as a team, right? Because a lot of players, they might be like, oh, I'm not used to this, I'm not going to try it, right? So you got to really kind of go out your stepping stone sometimes and really make effort to try something new and grow from it ultimately. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think COVID threw a wrench in a lot of things, but I think it definitely also illuminated some things. I know, at least for me personally, I was like, yeah, no, online is fine. I'm okay being social online. It'll be kind of the same. And then it was probably a year in where I realized I've been inside the house for like 6 months straight because I was school, work, and eating all from home. I was like, huh, this actually doesn't feel the same. And I think that's actually really cool that a lot of people are realizing that like in-person social things are really helpful and they do mean a lot over like, oh yeah, we just are on voice call after a game. I think even if our players would be on like video with their teammates, like that also could help and just be kind of that middle stone between purely voice and in person. But Matt, you mentioned anger being something that you see a lot of your players, or not a lot, but like a common thing your players exhibit. Um, so actually, I was doing a bit of research into anger, aggressive behavior in video games because I know, I guess, a lot of the naysayers of video games kind of pull up what the APA, the American Psychology Association, said about gaming, which is kind of verbatim. Video games is a precursor and propagator of aggressiveness and violent behavior. That kind of sentiment and statement started in 2005, and APA kind of linked video games to violent behavior. And that actually, they reinforced that in 2015. And it was only until 2020 where the APA kind of revoked that and was like, never mind, we were kind of wrong saying that video games equals violence. Um, really, what we mean is, attributing video games solely to violence is not appropriate. Um, how have you guys kind of seen that? I guess that kind of like we've kind of our community kind of got that negative stereotype that we're all angry because of video games. But I guess do you think that has kind of shaped the world's view on video games, but all as kind of like our internal view of if I play too many video games, will I become violent kind of point of view? Or do you think it doesn't have an effect at all? That's also totally fair.
I mean, you cited the was it the American APA, right?
APA.
Classification. It's yeah, I think they've determined that there's no causal relationship. It's really, really difficult with population studies to say that one thing causes another. Like you could argue that a lot of kids who grew up playing video games are also probably more introverted and probably spend a lot more time alone. We also know that the incidence of divorce in the US, especially, is significantly higher than it used to be, right? So 60% or something of American marriages fail, which means a lot of these kids grew up in single parent households all by themselves. So is the game the problem, or is the game just one of the outlets that they kind of dive into? I'm not trying to infer one way or the other. It's more so just that we don't know. And there are so many people that play video games in a productive way. And I don't mean productive, I mean like they play in a positive way. I think for me, I am someone who actually struggled a lot with video game addiction. I still do. And it was partially a result of, I grew up in a single parent household. I had friends, but I was kind of introverted. Video games for me were a way for me to escape from a lot of reality. And when I was really stressed in school or I was stressed at work, whatever it was, I was in the military. We played video games all the time. It's a release. Now the problem is when people start using it as a coping mechanism for everything else, where every time I'm stressed, I need to go home and play games for 12 hours. Like that's probably not a healthy approach to anything in life. But to say that video games should be blamed for causing violence and all this other stuff, I heavily disagree with that, given that, the rate of violence and murder and all this stuff has been relatively standard across human existence. And video games are a much more recent phenomenon. I don't, it's this, the most violent periods of human history occurred before electricity. So it doesn't really make sense to me that playing a game would force that even more so. It's not like, countries that have massive per capita video game players don't experience significantly more violence than other countries who don't, right? Like it's kind of it's not fair to attribute one thing to a very, very correlated potential relationship that has not been shown in evidence to at all be statistically relevant. So yeah.
I want to say too that generally, it's not like video game is the sole cause of like that anger. It's something else, right? So like, what is causing that anger? Is it like a failure to perform, or is it team pressure, or is it something along those lines? And when someone is angry on the team, that's how we like break it down and try to stop it.
Mhm.
And I think people who are like very like upset and angry, they either don't have like no way to release it, and so they have it either like bottled up and it gets too much, or the pressure to perform is just too great.
Mhm. Yeah, it is definitely tough being a pro player or even trying to be a pro player because you're shooting for something that not even 1% of the gaming population attains. And it is hard. And, we are kind of taught, some of us are taught from a young age, be a bit idealistic, go for your goals. And that may not happen. Um, but actually, one of the common things I hear from especially the older generation is still the stereotypes of video gaming. You are someone who sits in the basement with Cheeto dust on your fingers. You'll never amount to anything. Um, I guess, would you guys have anything to say to kind of those types of people that maybe, students can use to say, hey, mom and dad, we're not really like this, or kind of illuminate them a little bit on what gaming and esports is and how it can be beneficial?
Yeah, I would say that the modern pro player is not that at all. Like you can't be. You like I kind of mentioned earlier, the schedule and the demands of being a pro player nowadays don't allow you to treat yourself like dirt. Like you cannot stay up till 4 in the morning playing games and then expect to show up the next morning for scrim block and not have your entire team know it. If you start doing that regularly, you're not going to be on a pro team for very long. Like you're not going to perform and they're going to cut you. So as much as players can, even on the way to pro, aspiring pros, start adopting the lifestyle habits that pro players are already using, because the more, again, it always goes back to habits. The more normalized this stuff is for you, the less of a transition it is when you make it to pro. And conversely, like if you're adopting a lot of these habits, you're actually going to have a better chance of going pro, because you're going to be approaching the game the right way, which is you're focusing on improvement, not results. That helps a lot with the anger issues, right? If you're not focused on your win-loss ratio, you're focused more on like, am I improving every single game? Your win-loss ratio will reflect that later on. And then your chance to go pro will reflect that later on. So I think that the approach of like, or the thought that players are all sitting in their basements and all this stuff. I mean, it is true for some people still, right? It is a realistic lifestyle that a lot of gamers still have, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be that way. Like I mentioned before, like I had issues with gaming too much, and what's helped me a lot, once I got married, my wife is not a gamer at all. She hates video games pretty much, and so it's really interesting what that's forced me to accept in my own life of, I had to confront that with myself. Like, why am I always trying to play games? And I used to always say, oh, I just enjoy it. It's my hobby. It's all this other stuff. But then, she would point out like moments in which I would let gaming interfere with other things that I knew were important. And to me, that was like the definition of addiction, right? It was like, man, I almost missed a meeting that I really needed to go to at work because I was trying to finish a game really quick. Like that's a problem. And so confronting that made it easier for me to try to involve gaming in my life in a more healthy way. So I try to think of it as like a recreational activity now. I'm going to set aside certain hours of my day that I can devote to it, and not stress about it, and actually made it more enjoyable, because now I don't feel guilty about playing the game. I'm like, oh, this is something I planned for. It's something I intentionally am doing. And it's something that is not negative in my life. And so I think with every lifestyle decision like that, whether it comes to diet, going outside, just what you're doing, you got to kind of listen to yourself. Like, does this make me feel bad when I'm doing this, or does it make me feel like it's something I want to do? And I think a lot of the depression, anxiety, stress around gaming is going to be mitigated if you intentionally are doing it in a way that is positive for you, and you're honest with yourself about that.
Mhm. Yeah, actually, well, gaming addiction was kind of the next topic, so you're
Yeah.
already, kind of covered.
I
That's all right. But I did get some kind of concerns. The WHO said gaming addiction is now a medical condition. Do you agree with that? Do you kind of agree with the WHO?
Well, yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they also kind of caveated that with, it only affects a small number of individuals. Um, they didn't really give percentages, but I guess within, a bit of a biased sample being your pro players, do you see kind of like a small number of players like potentially being addicted, or do you see it a lot more heavily because they are pro players and want to maintain their status as a pro player?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Or
Um,
just the teams?
yeah, I see that a lot. I feel like a lot of players do get kind of like addicted to the point where they want to play a game regardless if it's a game they're grinding, right? Like for example, they're like, "Hey, I'm just gonna play this, but oh, I lost this game. I'm tilted. I'm gonna play this game instead," right? So if you see them constantly playing something to cope with something, that's where it starts getting to an issue, right? And going back to like the previous question, I think one of the things that really help make that less apparent is changing up your lifestyle and your like the way that you approach the game. I notice that a lot of teams, especially, I don't know if you've experienced this before, but like kind of taking it as like a more like traditional sport approach, like how NBA players train, for example, and how they play the game. Having those like workout times, those training times, practice times, scrim times, and making it more like a scheduled basis and basing yourself off of like how traditional sports works, right? So having balanced nutrition, diet, everything. And once you start encapsulating all those ideas and ideologies into your lifestyle, I think that's what makes it a lot better and makes those kind of addictions less strong, because you are thinking of gaming and practice as a different way rather than just I'm just going to play solo queue, right? And you really start thinking of those reasons, and that's when you start improving, when you do think of it of a different way.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of us do think of gaming as a hobby, but kind of with the rise of esports and gaming came gaming houses where you mixed social, sleeping arrangements, work, and play kind of all in the same area. Um, and then we've kind of seen the shift to facilities. So I guess for people who are a little bit curious about it, should your PC be in your room? And I'm obviously guilty of this, but also B, kind of what mindset should you have about your kind of potential career in gaming, so that it kind of doesn't, like, I guess everything doesn't mix, and get a little bit gray.
I think it depends. It depends because like one team, like Cloud9, they have a gaming house where all the players basically live there. I think a couple live outside, but there are perks and disadvantages to both. So it really depends on the players. If they are coming in expecting that and they're okay with it, it can be a positive thing because you get a lot of cohesion with the team. They live together, they know each other really well, even outside of the game. They're more incentivized to be friends if they get along. But obviously, there's the counter side of if they don't like each other, then they have to spend all day together. But it does create difficulty with separating work from, relaxation time. You don't get that barrier. And so for some players and some teams, it works fine on a short term. Other teams have kind of adopted the more professional sports model of players show up for work, they scrim, they do all their things, and then they leave. And then there's very little interaction unless they want there to be. I think that the old school gaming house model is probably on its way out. Not many teams do it anymore for various reasons. But the teams that do and can do it successfully, there are some advantages to it. Like you do get a group of players who feel like a family and they do feel like they have a very common goal in existence because they're hearing about it all the time. And it also allows for very, very quick communication when there is something like an idea that pops up. They can trial something or hey, hop in a game with me really quick. Let's practice this one thing. So that kind of stuff is lost if you don't have that direct connection right away. But in my opinion, I think overall, the better model is probably to have a separation and then have very set routines and schedules for players.
Mhm. Okay. Oh, sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say, like mentally, it's best to leave the bedroom associated for sleep and sex only. That's the rule, like the two S's. Um, if you plan to be most productive, um, studies have shown typically it's best to have it in a separate room or a separate workplace in that sense. One of the things that SFU is looking at is like a separate training place where players can like go to and like work in, but not stay, of course, like full time. Um, and I think that would be good for the team because it gives them that opportunity to like go meet in person, talk, and then also that option to stay home if they need or take that break and just play from home and be in that space where they are more comfortable.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess, Benson, do you guys have a gaming room or I guess, a practice room at TMU?
Yeah, we're currently planning to launch it in hopefully the upcoming semester. Our idea is that we always want our players to kind of play in person, and it definitely does a lot more team bonding. We've experienced that a lot, especially when we've been trialing new teams. When we do in-person tryouts or in-person boot camps, for example, we realize that the teams perform a lot better. So one of our teams went like 0-3 in the season, and then we're like, hey, we should try something new. Let's have you guys boot camp at this gaming cafe for like a couple days. We'll pay for it and everything. And then when they came back from that, they went undefeated the rest of the season because of that team cohesion and their whole ideology of how they want to play the game. So that team actually went on to keep doing in-person monthlies, where every month they go in person together and practice like that. I think having that shift of professionalism and at home is really good to have, because it puts you in that mindset of, hey, let's improve during this lab trial, right? Let's improve during this practice time. We have this dedicated block, so let's use it, right? Rather than just say, hey, I'm going to hop on my computer. I just got out from bed. I don't know what we're doing. Let's try something, I guess, right? So if you puts you in that mindset, that's really good. I feel like a lot of teams should be at least trying that out when they are trying new things.
Mm. Yeah, that's actually really interesting because I know a lot of people who work in esports like the hybrid model, where it's like you have the choice, but it's sounding like a lot of the competitive players are maybe not wanting, but maybe
Yeah.
needing more of that in person rather than the hybrid model that we have been used to, or I guess online model that we've been used to for the last 2 years. Um, but anyways, so we are kind of almost at the end of our show, or our 1 hour segment. Time really did fly by. So are there any kind of, I guess this is a bit of your guys' closing remarks. If you have any shout outs, shout them out. If you have anything you want to plug, or if you even have any advice for people not only trying to kind of become pro, but also just the general gamer base who just generally enjoys games and maybe wants to help themselves a little bit.
Yeah, a piece of messaging that I always like to, share in these kinds of segments are that no matter what your level in the game is, the biomechanical stress on your body is almost the same. So whether you're a casual player or a highly competitive tier one org player, pro player, the extent of damage, or not damage, I'd like to say stress on your body for 1 hour of gaming is almost universal. So taking care of yourself, even as a casual player, is really, really important. We want to play games for the rest of our lives, ideally, and we want to make it an enjoyable thing. Try to learn from the stuff that you see pros doing, and what professionals are helping pros do in order to keep playing, and try to adopt that yourself. I think it's really important to see yourself as an investment and invest in your own body and mind.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are really some really important messages. Benson, Matt, shout outs, final
Um,
regards.
yeah, I think my final message is like, I think a lot of the main message here is like, you can always improve, but it doesn't mean that you have to improve in just one thing, improve in everything else. So if you are improving on the game, see how you can improve in your like mental health, your physical wellness. You can improve everywhere. So just always keep that in mind and try new things and see what works.
For sure.
And if you have to, don't be afraid to take a break if you need it. Burnout is a real thing, and it sucks. I've experienced it firsthand. It's not great. If you do need it, it's an option, right? And everything does get boring eventually. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
Esports United is proud to announce Canada's dedicated Valorant Collegiate Invitational. MECI Valorant begins with Western and Eastern Canadian divisions. Tune in on July 23rd and 24th for our West Division qualifiers and July 30th and 31st for the East Division. Find our socials at linktree/mesportsunited to stay up to date with more MECI news. Now enjoy the rest of the Canadian Intercollegiate Exhibition. We'll see you soon. Esports United is proud to announce Canada's dedicated Valorant Collegiate Invitational. MECI Valorant begins with Western and Eastern Canadian divisions. Tune in on July 23rd and 24th for our West Division qualifiers and July 30th and 31st for the East Division. Find our socials at linktree/mesportsunited to stay up to date with more MECI news. Now enjoy the rest of the Canadian Intercollegiate Exhibition. We'll see you soon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next panel, Rising King. Again, I am your host, Jennifer, and we are joined by King BL, or Brendan,
Okay.
whatever you want to
Nice to
call him.
meet you guys.
So for those of you who don't know, Brendan is a content creator, streamer, kind of you do everything, from what I
Do
understand.
everything, yeah.
But do you want to kind of give everyone a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do YouTube and Twitch. I've been doing it for a number of years now. Recently, I've done a series where I do 100 hours of gaming. So I do 100 hours of new games. So we started with Valorant, and we're doing Apex. So we're basically seeing how good I can get at different games in like a series of 100 hours. So it's not about a rank; it's just about actually seeing what you can do in 100 hours. So you guys can try it too at home if you want to, or see like what I think of the game. You know, if you want to try it, or maybe you're like, oh, dude, this doesn't look fun at all. You gotta get engaged on that. Before that, I did a variety of stuff. And then before that was Pro Fortnite. So I've been in the gaming scene for a number of years with casting, like Smash, stuff like that. And yeah, it's been he's Code King, you know.
Awesome. Okay, so you haven't been on the panel before, but we have kind of 3 standard
Mm.
questions we ask all of our
Yeah,
guests.
sure.
First one is, how long have you been gaming for?
Yeah, I've been gaming since I was like a little lad, little guy. When I first started, it was a lot of like solo games. I didn't really know a lot about like the online scene yet. I played a lot of like Nintendo stuff. My parents were not cool with me having like an Xbox or PlayStation, so I was just a solo kid all the way. But then as I got a little older, you know, I got like a PC, my first like laptop from my mom, like school teacher kind of thing. So I got CS:GO like really early. I was like, yo, this is cool. Got in the Steam community, online stuff. So probably like since I was like maybe like 13, 14-ish, I was like then kind of getting into League and CS stuff like that. So that I guess that would be considered like gaming more because before it was just kind of like playing alone. But that definitely was the start, probably 13, 14-ish.
Mhm. So I guess your parents didn't like Xbox, but they said Siege?
No.
Yeah,
They
go for
didn't
Siege.
know. Like it was like all those things where like they can watch you play like Mario Strikers, and then over there I'm like, you know, like, out here playing CS:GO. They're like, what's up? What you? Oh, I'm just doing homework. You know, alt tab back. Like you could just kind of hide a little bit, but yeah.
Did you definitely gain that like intuition for when your parents were just starting to lurk and you're
Oh
like,
yeah, absolutely. Because they like kind of start to kind of gauge a little bit, you know, when you're like 15, 16, your homework's like teacher's like, yo, he's not handing in anything. And my mom was a school teacher, right? So she has that connection early because I can't really lie anymore because she's just makes like a text or a phone call of like a teacher friend, and they're like, hey yo, whatever he says, he's lying, bro. Like they can just kind of like reach out really quickly. So I had to kind of get good at like the one headphone thing where because it was like the office space, so they'd be like there was like a door behind me. So like they can open it and check in. So they like kind of I'd lock it and then like I'd like hear them jiggle it, and I'd like go back. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Like I didn't know kind of thing. But I had to kind of get that third sense of like when they're coming in the room.
yeah, definitely the strict parents raise the sneaky kids, the smart
Oh
kids who know how to
yeah,
get away with
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
absolutely.
All right, so what is your favorite game, and kind of why is it your
um,
favorite game?
I think favorite like I don't know. I think I'm one of those people who really likes games that I get good at. So it's like I think that's where the 100 hours thing kind of works because I'll just play whatever if I get good enough at it. I enjoy it. I think the favorite game of all time though probably would be like either like solo game would be Dishonored. That's probably definitely my favorite game I've ever played. It's like a really good storyline. It's a little older, but if you ever got into it, it's like really worth a try. But like multiplayer game, probably Fortnite. Like although it's definitely cringe now, back in the day it was really really fun, and I think it was really fun because it was like this cool like new game that everyone was kind of trying. And it was really cool to get good at because there was just so many people trying it, so it was really easy to kind of like skill expression. There's all this building and all the stuff you can do with it. There's no like chance of like getting really bored of it. But then they started adding a lot of stuff, so it didn't become as fun. But I think the older Fortnite was definitely my favorite game at the time.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see the value of like Fortnite and like, oh, you get
Mm,
all the characters, all the collabs, like it's cool. I
yeah,
just got lost at the building. I was like, yeah,
yeah.
no.
It took a lot of time to get into, but it was definitely really fun if you can get a hang of it.
Mm. Do you still play Fortnite?
Not as much, I think. I just kind of fell out of love with it. It just like became a job because I started doing like pro stuff with it for a bit. So once you do that, it becomes kind of hard to have fun with it. Like it's like hard to like enjoy something when you put time and made money from it. You're just like it's hard to go back and be like, oh, like it's not the same. You know what I mean? When you go back, like I still play with a friend sometimes, but it's like definitely hard to like disengage that like competitive side when you play something you really put a lot of hours into because you're just like, oh, we used to be this way, you know.
Yeah, you definitely habituate to that, and you're like everything's
Yeah.
competitive, and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, you just want to have fun with friends, and it's like it's easier now because there's so much happening. It's hard to be competitive at that point because there's like planes and buses, and you just randomly explode. You're like, dude, what's going? There's Rock Johnson in there. You're like, dude, what is this Naruto? You're like, dude, okay, like let's go, dude. I don't know what's going on. So
Yeah, some of those collabs are insane. I was
yeah,
surprised. Like the moment I saw John Wick in there, I was like, how? I mean, it's really
Ooh.
cool. I want to play because I
No, it's
like John Wick,
awesome.
but it's also
Yeah,
like, can I just not build?
yeah. How they, like as a spectator, it's honestly such a sick game. Like they have so many collabs and all this cool stuff, and they get Marvel. What is Marvel than anything with any games? You know, what I mean, this is like that involved with it. They have a whole storyline behind it. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Mhm. I think it's just interesting. Also, it became kind of a meme to be like, oh, you're a Fortnite
Oh
gamer, and it
yeah,
was always, oh, you're the
yeah.
younger player. Like the younger
Oh,
crowd's all Fortnite now. The older crowd is like CS, R6,
that
like those.
yeah.
That's a kiddie game.
Dude, it was so cringe. Tell people I played pro Fortnite. I would just lie. I'd be like, oh, I made money on stocks, like I, crypto or something, NFTs. Guy. Like I would just lie every time. Everyone asked, I just lie. Like just lie. I'd be like, I got a really good job. I just
Just don't
lied
worry
every
about it.
time. Well, because like it's so cringe. People make so much fun of me, dude. It's like you can't seriously say that and be like, yeah, guys, what's up? You want to hang out? Or like, you want to work? You know?
Do you still lie about kind of what you do, or you're more
Yeah,
comfortable like I'm
yeah.
oh,
No,
okay.
I lie. Yeah, I lie consistently online. It's like a joke. It's like, just like nothing seriously lie, but I think it's like really fun to like throw some small lies in there. You know, just like
To
see what
mess with
happens. You know?
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like small things. Yeah.
Get time to farm the content.
Oh yeah, you just a couple of those. You know, toss them in there.
Yeah. Okay, so then since you're out of Fortnite, what is currently like the game you're super into?
I was super into Valorant since like beta. But then I kind of got a little bored of it, sort of. Like I hit Immortal, I was like, this is cool, and then I kind of got a little bit more bored of it. I think some things about it, I was like, I kind of want to do something else with my life. I don't really see myself being a pro Valorant player, so I was like, I don't want to put too much time to this and not really do too much with it because I found myself focusing on other kind of content. So I was like, not sure, but it definitely is the game I play. I play DVD a lot too. It's like a fun game, Dead by Daylight, like the spare
Mhm.
time off stream. But mostly those two games. Like I'm down to play whatever usually, but those are the two games I'm playing like the most right now.
Awesome. All right,
Mm,
so we've talked a little bit about it, but you're a content
mm,
creator,
mm,
commentator, editor,
mm,
you have merch, you do a
mm.
podcast, you dance, you play Smash, you were immortal, and you're a Valorant coach. Okay, so A, what can you not do at this rate? Like, is there anything like you're looking to get more into because you haven't touched on that yet?
Um, Probably the thing I can do is get a girlfriend. That's
Okay.
definitely A1. But on the real, I don't know. I guess when I put it like that, I forget how much stuff I've done or can do. Because always like dance was a pretty character building thing, I guess, because it was like traveling around the world to go like world of dance was pretty sick. Definitely very hard. Um, I think I think the 100 hour stuff I'll try eventually in future to move past gaming, maybe like 100 hours of cooking and stuff like that. Try different things as well to learn like some cool life skills, you know. Um, but I don't know. That's a really good question. Actually, I think I don't know. I'm down to try anything. So there's nothing I can't. I don't know if I can't fully do yet. At least with an attempt, you know, I'll try anything. So we'll see on that one. You know, we'll see on like what I actually can do. There's definitely some things I just there's no way I can do. Like I'll try to do them and it's gonna just end horribly. You know what I mean?
I think I would think like an IRL 100 hours like you go rock climbing, hiking, you learn how to cook.
Yeah,
Like, I think that'd be pretty cool because
really interesting. Yeah,
I'm gonna say gamers are traditionally stereotyped as we don't have life
yeah.
skills.
No, yeah, absolutely. And like if maybe I get sponsored by like a TV show or something like that for that, so they can like fly me out, like pay for like expenses during that time, or like even if they want to hook up like a deal to kind of like help me find a coach or help me find a safe way to like do those things without like putting myself in danger, like rock climbing. Like if they can find like a coach or something like that, or like maybe even far as like Gordon Ramsay or like some famous cook to like sit me down for like 100 hours and just show me what's up, you know, because there's only so much I can do online. I'm sure there's a lot I can do online, but it'd be really cool to like have someone kind of critique it a bit better, you know.
Mhm.
So.
I'm hearing you just want Gordon Ramsay to yell at you.
It'd be a bit of clout. I'm not gonna lie, it'd be some good content. I might cry a little bit. I don't know.
That'd be cool if you just end up doing like not amateur master chef. You just bring your content creators together, be like, yeah, let's look at yelled at.
That would be really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a shout out to anyone who is from those companies,
Hmm.
go
My
go
line,
message
you know what I'm
them.
saying?
All right. So I guess where did you start in that long list of your journey?
I think dance actually. I started dance when I was like, do you guys know like Praise Team in Surrey?
No, I'm not
Okay,
a
so it's like
I'm not a
a.
Surrey kid.
Oh, okay. If anyone knows, I'm sure someone does. I think there's some dance people from there at like SFU or UBC now, or they might have graduated. Uh, but I started there when I was like 15, and then I did that until I was like 9. I think I saw it when I was 21. So like I danced for like 4 or 5 years, just like off and on, because my sister did it. It was like one of those things where my sister was like a ballerina for a bit. And I was like, oh, like I could do that. And he was like, we'll do it. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it then, whatever. And then I like actually did do it. And then it took a few years, but I'm a very like goal, like I'll make a goal and I'll do it. And then I'm like good after, like, because I told my mom, I was like 16. I was like, I'm gonna end up on World of Dance one day. She's like, okay, like do it then. I was like, all right, bet. It took a couple years, and the road was a bit rocky. Took some other dance studios, and eventually ended up in A3 district. And then we went to World of Dance once. I didn't like place. My goal was to place top 3, and then I was thinking about quitting because like it's been a lot of years. I'm more focused on content now because at that time I started doing content creation and gaming and like Fortnite. And I was like, okay, like I don't have as much time for dance because it's a very time consuming thing. And so I got a call. He was like, yo, one of my coaches was like, yo, man, like we need one person, and you're the guy. Do you want to come to Orlando next week and we can do World of Dance? I was like, yeah, sure. Like I was chilling at like the university gym, and then I go to Orlando, learn the dance routine from a YouTube video from they made. It was really intense. It was hard. Like I work doing dance is like crazy, like character like building, because you really have to like get good at taking really hard criticism and actually fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was very difficult, but we ended up getting top 3, which is awesome. We weren't able to go to the finals like the TV show because we just didn't even plan on getting top 3. But it was really cool to get that reward, and like I never really made a vlog out of it, but I saw the video. I should probably put up some time of like me walking around Disneyland, and we were like chilling around Disneyland, like having fun and like talking to like famous dance people. But it was really sick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I guess you mentioned character building. So what are
Yeah.
some of the things you actually learned from dance that you still carry with you?
Definitely be humble and be willing to kind of take like be humble but also be confident in yourself enough to know like when you can improve and when it's a time to outgrow the studio you're at or the coaching you're at, or know kind of what you need to work on yourself, because a lot of time you're going to get advice that isn't exactly always the most helpful, but it is important to know that people who do kind of break you down, depending on the person, of course, um, may like are trying to help you, and it is important to understand that they sometimes do know better than you, and like it does suck to get told like you're not doing things right or you're not doing even when you're trying your best. So it is a lot of rejection, a lot of like times I go to studios or different teams and I didn't get in. Like I really want to go to World Dance before that, so I kept applying to different things and just wasn't getting what I wanted. Like I just didn't get accepted many times. So like it was cool to finally get one at the very end of opportunity. Um, but definitely learned a lot about myself of like persevering, and that I definitely can do a lot of cool things. Like I mean, I went from like not being on the team to in a week having to learn the dance and then travel with them, people that I never met before, to Orlando and like hang out with them in a hotel and like practice like at like 3 to like 6 a.m. like at night in this like Orlando heat, just like practicing like drills and drills and drills alone. So it was a lot of just kind of learning how to work on myself and be like self like driven and like motivated, I guess was a big thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's
So
that's definitely a really good quality to have. I think
yeah.
a lot of younger people maybe they don't necessarily have that, or they're I think
Yeah.
they're scared a little bit to be ambitious, because I know
Mm.
sometimes they get like, oh, you're arrogant. They
It's
people equate like ambition with arrogance, and it's a little unfortunate to see that.
it's rough. Yeah, it's definitely easy to fall in that trap of like being like, I guess, kind of like the cringe guy who drives like, oh, you have dreams or whatever. It's like just be don't you don't want to make that like you don't want to overcommit to your dreams sometimes because people can make fun of it. So a lot of people are too scared to be real with what they want in life, you know?
Yeah, I
So
think it's actually super toxic now that you mentioned that. Like, every time like I see someone like, hey, I want to start streaming, and the friends go, you think you're gonna be
yeah,
Pokimane? Like,
yeah.
you think
Oh,
you're gonna
were
be
you
great?
funny now? Funny
It's like,
guy?
oh, I'm sorry, I want to try something new, and it's I
Yeah.
guess, have you experienced any of that culture where like
Oh
you
yeah,
you
yeah.
got
Like
poked fun of for having
oh,
that
absolutely. Like
aspiration?
I think of oh, it's a lot of kind of running with the joke. I've definitely had that happen a lot, but it's like definitely kind of having thick skin and separating yourself from the creator you're putting out there. Because like everyone knows King BO, no one knows me as a person, and that's what's perfect is I don't really put my personal life out there online. I lie a lot, I joke a lot, I never really deal with people because then at least then if they're making fun of me, they're not making fun of me as a person. They don't really know me. It's kind of that protective barrier of like this is not actually who I am. People meet me like, oh, you're a bit different because it's like it's not actually who I put out there. So it's important to kind of have that like shell of like this is who I am, but this is who I actually put out there. But it's very like all through high school when you first started, like no matter what you do, if this I think this is being streamed, is it? Yeah.
Yes,
Oh
we are
yeah.
live.
Hi.
Yes.
No matter what you do out there, the most important advice is that no matter what you do when you start streaming, you're gonna look back at it and think it's cringe. I look back at YouTube videos that I made from 2 years ago. I think those are cringe, but at the time I made them, they looked awesome. So like you're always gonna develop your skills and like be different in a funnier way. You'll be more confident in yourself. When you start, no one's gonna have your back. Like all my friends in high school making fun of me at the time. Like it was like like you're just doing this for a thing. Like it's very hard to like convince people. My parents still don't even watch my stuff, but it's okay. Like it's a fine thing. It's just like you have to kind of be your best motivator because no one's gonna help you. Like it's like you're gonna have to make edits yourself. You're gonna have to like put time to learn editing yourself. Like no one's gonna unless you have a lot of money. Maybe you have a lot of money to start with. But if you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a motivation, you gotta have to like find that in yourself because no one's gonna be there for you, which is okay. But you kind of have to like really reflect on what streaming and content creation is because there's no way like anyone around you is gonna see what you see until you do it. Like kind of thing. Like no one would have thought I got to where I am now before that when I was like, oh, I'm gonna try Fortnite. I didn't think I'd be a pro Fortnite player and make money on it and do the streaming stuff with it. Like it was a thing that I had to believe in, and then I had to prove to everyone else because no one believed me until it was already done. Like no one was there all in the way, kind of pushing me. It was like a thing that I had to like have a vision, accomplish it, and then be like, look what I did. And then they're like, oh, sick. You know what I mean? But they wouldn't have done that beforehand. You know?
Yeah, actually, I think it sounds like the way that you did come up, or I guess get brought up in this way, does reflect on your dance experience being
Hmm.
all right. Bet I'll
Yeah,
do
like
it.
we ball. You know? Yeah.
I guess did you like where did that come from? Like I guess like the put your money where your mouth is kind of attitude
um.
you're giving, or is it kind of your self motivation method?
I think I was definitely like not the cool kid in high school, so I had a lot to prove. Like as I got older, I feel like there's a lot of like not really getting recognized or like appreciated as like a little lad. So I was like, I want to like get noticed. So I was like the funny kid in high school. So I definitely worked on that as I got older. I think a lot of it just came from like wanting to prove to other people that I was like cool or valid or sturdy. So like it definitely became a lot of just like wanting to prove to other people at first, and then it became like an own thing where I want to accomplish things that I want to accomplish. So it just became like a very thing where I think a lot of times when I was younger, I didn't really follow through with a lot of things I wanted to do. And I think that kind of stuck with me that I wanted to kind of change that as I got older. And that resulted in me setting up really fun goals and actually trying to always accomplish them. So I don't know exactly, there's not like an event that happened or something super traumatic. It was just an accumulation of like bad experiences when I was younger that I was like, I want to like prove that I can do cool things and prove people that didn't believe in me from before. So like that was a big thing, was just kind of proving to myself and to others that I could follow through with things that I planned on doing.
Mhm.
So I guess that's kind of where it came from. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good mindset to have because I know when people kind of
Mm.
always get that negative feedback, you either kind of say, okay, I'm just gonna forget it, or you kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like, no, and
huh,
essentially, screw
yeah,
you, I'm
yeah,
gonna do it, right?
yeah.
It's one of those like there's a lot of haters in this world, and sometimes it's
Here's the
just
certified haters
block
for
them out,
real. Yeah.
get yourself like a
Hmm.
close group of friends,
Yeah.
and just work with them.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, so I guess through kind of your independence on kind of how you were brought up and not the I guess the lack of support that you got from the people closest to you, is that kind of where you learned your video editing and how to
Um.
do those videos, or did you go to school for that or something?
No, I did not go to school for
Okay.
videoing. I've never had any formal training on editing, despite what my job applications might say. I've definitely just kind of learned myself. You can. This isn't like a Skillshare ad, but like you can, if you really want to do those, you can. But to be honest, in my opinion, people always ask me like, "How'd you learn to edit? Teach me how to edit." I can't teach anyone because like, to be honest, it's not super hard to learn how to editing. It's just basically if you find a problem or you want to do something, just Google it. Like just literally go to YouTube, find it. You can't teach humor. You kind of just have to have it, or you kind of learn it as you go along. So just with video editing, just honestly open up Premiere, open up what if you're in school, you can get it super cheap, or any editing software. Just kind of open it up and look at it yourself. Throw in a video clip and see what you can do with it. And if you run into a problem like how do I cut this? What's a faster option? Like just Google it. Like there's no 100% guide on how to learn video editing. I think not to bash on going to school for it. I think it's definitely you can get more professional stuff like for you like for movies or whatever. But for like basic video editing for YouTube or you whatever you want to do, most people you can Google it. There's like so much information out there, like CapCut on iPhones if you can't afford a PC, or you can get like CapWing or on laptops or whatever. There's a lot of options out there to learn it if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I guess would that be a bit of advice you give to like the up and coming content creators?
Yeah, definitely. Just yeah, just
Yeah.
Google it. Honestly,
Yeah, I'm still a little amazed at Google sometimes. Like the amount of
Mm.
things you can Google and the amount of resources,
Yeah.
like it almost kind of begs the question. I've been hearing it also from people around our age, being like, "Oh, I don't need university necessarily, or I don't need
Mhm.
college. I can Google things, learn how to do things on my own. It'll be faster, and I'll
Mhm.
learn practical things." So I guess what is your stance kind of on
On school.
school,
Like,
yeah,
oh yeah.
or people trying to pick between like content creation and formal school?
I think you should take some classes, not all, depending on what you want. Like I'm in business school, for example. So there is a very important social aspect you should learn. You should like associate yourself with other business people. You should take some classes like law, accounting. So like very like because those things you can learn online, but like you really want to make sure that wherever you are in the world, like if you're in Canada or America or wherever you are, you're at least learning like your countries from a formal education thing. Online is good, but I think people rely on it a little too much because it is very important to at least hear information from a like 100% reliable source in school, and then question that information later and Google it after, because there is only so much you can find online. I think too, it's important. I think for me at least too, I find that I like learn a little bit better in person for things that are like I don't really care about. So accounting is a snoozer. It's such a snoozer, but like I don't think I would want to learn it online. I don't think I'd have the passion to care online. But I think in person, when you're stuck there for an hour and you're paying for a class, you're a little bit more motivated to care. So like certain classes, you find yourself not really caring online, maybe go in person. It's not about the social aspects really important. Learning how to like apply these things in real life is important. And like forcing yourself, like standardized tests are a little bit cringe, but like they do kind of force you to actually learn it. Like I don't think I would have learned all that I learned online because I wouldn't be forced to remember it. Like there's no test at the end of it. Like it's like I could just Google it, okay, I got it, and then like, I don't need it. But I do think school is a little bit of a waste of time, and depending on what you're doing, you just got to consider what you want. I just wanted some business connections, so I went to school for that, or we're still going to school for that. So that's just for me. But if you're not going for business school or lawyer school or medical things, if it's like art stuff, I don't think it's as important all the time, depending on what you want to do. So if you want to go into content creation full time, I'd say go for it. I think if you're really considering school or for content creation, I think the genuine advice I'd give is budget your life out. Have at least like 6 months of like your life expenses before you go to content creation full time. And then if you can't do that, go to school and get a job until you can do that. And then if you want to do it, you can. But like make sure you don't dive into it head first, like every online guru says, and like just throw away everything and go for your passion. Make sure you be realistic with it too, because it might not be exactly what you want until you get into it, and then you're like, "Yo, I threw everything for this, bro. Like, I'm screwed," So
Yeah, I
don't do
think
that.
definitely have that safety net. And
Yeah,
if you
that's the
can, for
thing.
sure, like do both. If you can
Yeah.
budget that time, because I know some content creators. I think we were talking to Vicky earlier this week, and she was like, "Yeah, I have a 9 to 5. I come home, have dinner, and I stream for 4 hours every night, and that's
Yeah,
my
perfect.
routine." I'm like, how you do that is amazing because there's no way I could do a full day of work and
Yeah,
a half day of streaming
yeah,
every day. But that's what you love.
exactly.
Okay, so bit of a pivot here. What is your favorite social media platform and why?
Um, I think I like TikTok just because it's so like mind numbing. You know what I mean? Like you just scroll through that thing all day. But I think it's definitely a great play for people to like market yourself if you're a streamer. But it is like definitely you can get lost in the sauce on TikTok, to be honest. Like I find myself just scrolling on the thing all day and I'm like, yo, I need to stop. Like I'm sitting here for like hours on end. But it is probably the best platform for content creators to get onto if you're already on it. But it is definitely really fun because it's like it's so random the stuff you find on there. Like it is catered towards you obviously. and I find it avoids like it's a way to like not think if you don't want to deal with like real things happening in the world. It's like a fun way to like kind of escape for a bit, not have to like get ads or a random pop up towards us. So you can kind of just like scroll forever. So it is. I think that's probably why it's my favorite right now.
Yeah, TikTok's definitely dangerous. There's
Oh
been
yeah,
times where
yeah,
it's like, uh-huh, uh-huh. Oh, it's 2 hours. It's like
yeah. You know,
I probably should stop, but like maybe a couple more.
yeah. Maybe that one wasn't that good. I don't want to end
Yeah.
on that one. Yeah, we gotta go to the next one, right?
Or I guess I don't know if you probably hit it, but it's the stop. You've been scrolling for too long, and like they
Yeah,
tell you that, and you're just like,
yeah.
now
What
I
do
feel
you know,
guilty.
dude? Yeah, what do you know, bro? Like you don't know me like that.
You know what? Just to prove you wrong, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Yeah,
going, dog. I'm not told what to do, bro. I'm an adult, man. Like I don't know.
yeah, but we've seen kind of a bit of the shift from mainstreaming platforms to being Twitch,
Mm.
and then some big Twitch streamers going to YouTube, and then YouTube coming up with YouTube Shorts as soon as TikTok popped up. So, I guess were you involved in content creation during those like that weird like circular switch and rise of TikTok?
Yeah, it definitely was weird to watch it happen. Like it was, I was definitely watching it happen when it was a thing. I was like I think that's the bad part of TikTok is like it makes like longer form content like it leaves it as a weird market. I think it's like I don't think people were meant to like absorb that much content that fast as like TikToks are low key. Like, I don't think it's a good idea, but like it's doing what it's got to do. But I don't think it's healthy for us to take that much. I don't know though, like it's on some doomer stuff, but I do think it's a little bit too much sometimes. Like I find myself getting like I'm like yo, this is like a lot. Like it's so much information so fast, and I think a lot of it's like easy to like it kind of like enhances whatever POV you have on whatever situation in life. Like it doesn't really like it kind of caters to what you're already thinking and like keeps going with that, which I think is a little dangerous for some things because it doesn't really like force you to think sometimes because it'll be like oh like I'm a therapist, this is this thing, but like there's like no credibility and you're like oh that's real, like that's real, like you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
kind of like that's the only part that's a little bit sketchy, but I do think it's a little scary that everything's coming to short form content because it means like a big shift for like future. Like, what do you do as a content creator? Do you still make YouTube videos? Like, do people still gonna watch that stuff? Like, it's kind of hard to know what to do in that situation.
Hmm. Yeah, I think definitely like sorting through the facts on TikTok are also really hard. Like, for whatever reason, I started getting like tarot card readings. I'm like, I don't believe in tarot
Yeah,
cards. Like,
yeah,
oh, but
like
this was meant for you. I
yeah.
didn't
I'm
do
like,
that.
oh,
And I'm like, okay, goodbye. I don't need that.
yeah,
Or even I see people going like, oh, don't eat these foods because they're bad for you. And sitting here with a kin background, I'm like, that's a lie. Like that's a
yeah.
flat out lie. But people are like, yeah, yeah, yeah. If I do this and I do that, I'll lose 10 pounds in a week. I'm like, no.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know, dude. Like I'm like, I just sit down like, oh, I don't know. Like, is that real? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
But I guess do you see yourself kind of staying more with TikTok, or do you see yourself
uh,
still going on with like your YouTube videos and everything?
personally, I might get someone to help me with TikTok because I hate the editing in like that way, like the face cam over the game. I don't like it. I find it so mind numbing and like boring to edit. Like I hate doing it. It takes me so long to do because I hate like I can't do funny zoom ins because it's like you have to do two like layers of stuff. It's really
Yeah.
annoying. So I personally don't really enjoy editing on TikTok that much. I probably will stick with YouTube and see where that goes. But I do think I'll probably find someone to help me with like TikTok editing because it'd be a little bit easier. But I hope I can stick with YouTube instead. That would be much preferred, to be honest. But well, you kind of have to see. You kind of like you kind of just kind of go with what everyone's going with. You can only like choose all the time, but it's okay to be different too. Maybe that will work as well.
Yeah, actually going back to what you said earlier, it's really
Mm,
interesting to see that like our parents, they had encyclopedias. And
mm,
we're always criticized for, well, you have the internet, your life is easy, or we're I guess our generation is raised with all of this like quick
mm,
access to everything, and then TikTok was just like this whole other thing where it really gives us quick access.
mm.
Um, I don't know where I'm going with this. I really don't know where I'm going with this, but okay, we're gonna change topics. I don't. Okay, anyways,
For sure.
huh.
Yeah.
For people trying to get into content creation, obviously TikTok's really popular, but what would you recommend, like YouTube or Twitch for streaming? Or do you have a
I
bias?
think it depends on what you want to do. I think it's important to remember that Twitch is kind of like a gamble. It is like you do it, you stream, and you hope that you get recognized or rated or hosted. But it is a lot harder to grow on because there's so many talented creators on there all the time. So you kind of have to find like there is ways you can find stuff. I'm a very big believer of just kind of go for it and see what happens. It is important to kind of know that like you might get like a certain amount of people, you might not. But Twitch is kind of like you're making your food, like you're making your content, right? And YouTube is kind of like you're displaying it for everyone else to see. Because there's a very low chance of you getting discovered on Twitch, and there is a low chance of getting discovered on YouTube, but still better than Twitch because it's like at least you can make your really interesting content or whatever you want to do on Twitch into a really cool video people might watch. Because it's very rare people watch your stream over someone bigger. But a YouTube video, maybe you title it right, you put a good thumbnail on there. There's a very good chance people might see it, as opposed to Twitch where you're like over in a sea of people at the bottom of the list with 1 to 2 viewer Andy. It's very difficult to get noticed. Whereas if you make a really banger video from that content, there's a very good chance people would see. So I think you have to have a healthy balance of both, or you could get lucky on one or the other two. Because some people could just have a Twitch stream blow up. They just do some crazy stuff. A clip gets posted on Twitch and becomes like part of Twitch history, and then your Twitch is set forever. Or you can have a YouTube blow up. Maybe someone reacts to it. Maybe Moist Critical reviews your video, like reacts to it. Then you have a YouTube career. So it's like it's important to do both and kind of see. It's important as a content creator to kind of like not put all your eggs in one basket and then kind of like test everything, because at least one, you can never get really sad if like things start to drop, because like no matter what you do with streaming, like even like Ludwig or XUC or big streamers, like they'll have a huge spike because they did an event like the subathon, but then the numbers are going to tank incredibly hard. So even though it's like, oh wow, how is he sad? He made like $1 million this month. It's like, well, it still is sad to see those numbers drop because it feels like failure kind of, or like something's wrong. So it's important to kind of keep doing new things to like not let your like mental get too focused on one part of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think Ludwig's honestly really, really good streamer, content creator.
Absolutely.
But kind of talking about like a bit of the validity of social media and Twitch and YouTube. I know, I guess at least for me, a lot of videos from I think it's Asmongold.
Mm.
His videos for me started popping up during the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, and it was like these short 2-minute clips where it was like just him reacting to it. How do you feel on like I guess typically like gaming streamers kind of pivoting and using like what's popular at that time for their content and I guess to get themselves more popular? Do you think it's like it's fine you're a content creator, or do you think it's a little bit I guess disloyal to your core of what you were doing?
I guess it depends on the person. Like if they have had a background, like I think Ludwig, for example, has a good background in journalism, so it's like he's at least formally, I guess, educated on it. And I mean, anyone can, to be honest, be like some level of journalist if you just do research. I don't think people should be bashed for like diving into new things. I think I've been one to try to keep diving into new things because it's like important to like at the end of the day, I want to be like a talk show host eventually. I mostly use gaming as like a platform to get there, but like it is, I guess, as long as you're honest with what you're doing. But I think there is some people like, for example, like H3, where it's like a lot of times there's clips of him saying some absolutely heinous stuff that like there's like you're like, bro, how are you? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like I think it's if you're going to branch out, it's probably a good idea to at least kind of know what you're talking about. Like I wouldn't do a stream about geography because I don't know anything about geography. I'm really bad at it. I'm not great. I'm gonna keep it real. Like I'll learn, but like I think it's just important to remember that you do have a platform and you can get the really wrong audience if you start saying some really bad stuff that isn't like in line with your values but gets you an audience. Like if you know it's in your audience, people might dive into that. It's really hard to like find that balance because at the end of the day it's easy to lose yourself in numbers. Like if you start saying some crazy stuff on Twitch or YouTube and people start watching it more than what you want to make, it's very easy to be like, okay, well, I'll just do that. Like I'll just become that guy because at least then people are going to watch you. So it's very easy to kind of do that, I think. And I think a lot of people do that without realizing, because once you start opening that kind of Pandora's box of like politics or things that are happening in the world, you kind of can't stop because people are going to keep asking for your opinion on it, because now you have an audience that wants that, because they're like, oh, well, if you talked about one thing, you got to talk about this, like, oh, we're talking about Amber Heard, now you got to talk about this thing happening in the world. You have to talk about everything kind of going on because you started it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's really hard to like know where that line kind of goes. But I think depending on the person, if they know what they're talking about and they don't give like a really bad opinion that like is like, oh, yo, like, bro, you should, I don't know what you're talking on that one.
That's not it. Just
yeah, that's not it.
Not
Like,
it.
I don't know. I think it's fine usually, but I do think that some streamers kind of can't really start drawing lines in the sand with like certain topics. Like, oh, I'm not gonna talk about this, I'm gonna talk about this, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about this. It's like hard to know kind of where to stop. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know some streamers definitely pick and choose. Like some, of
Yeah.
course, dove into the Amber Heard Johnny Depp, and
Yeah.
some just were like, we're not talking about it.
Yeah.
I even see actually, it seems like it would be even smart, like just smart for streamers to pick things, like you said, like things that they know about or things that they are passionate about rather than what is
Mm.
popular. As I know, I've seen actually a lot of tweets about the Roe v. Wade
Yeah.
and all the women and all the people who support the women who are like, yeah, no, that's not fair. Government shouldn't tell me what to do. Um, but that also, I guess, the volatility of everyone or everything does beg the question, especially with streamers and content creators, of cancel culture. We've
Mm.
talked about it a little bit on the diversity panel and kind of what goes on with that and like why people are canceled and how they can like kind of uncancel themselves.
Mm.
Um, how do you generally feel about, I guess, cancel culture at A, its roots, but also B, kind of
Um,
what it's turned into?
I think it definitely has got a little bit like it's kind of got a little bit wilding on the side of like it's got a little bit too far sometimes. I think people get canceled for things that like shouldn't be canceled for sometimes. I do think with the Rob McQuaid thing, or the Rob McQuaid thing, Rob McQuaid, what is it? Wait,
Roe
sorry,
v. Wade?
Rob McQuaid. Sorry, I like every time I forget, I think of it. Like for me, like with that situation, I'm not educated enough to have like to talk about it too publicly, but I'm on the side of like I do think women should have the choice in that situation. I don't think anyone should think any differently. It's like a medical thing more than just a political thing. Personally, like, I think a lot of people should at least talk about it because if you don't talk about it, I think like at least say where you stand on it because people then can make a decision if they want to pursue your content or not, if that's like a thing they want to leave or not.
Yeah.
Like personally, I was like, yeah, I'm on the side of the ladies here. Like, I don't think that's just my personal opinion. I'm not gonna like go out and try to talk about the history because I don't know it, and I'm not gonna pretend I do. Because why would I? You know what I mean? I'm not gonna look like an idiot and try to start saying things I don't know. But that's where I stand on it. But I think that it is with cancel culture, at least. Like personally, I haven't been canceled, so I don't know. But I do think there's like a part of like personally, if I were to get called out for something, I wouldn't apologize because I think once you start apologizing, it like you just have to keep apologizing. I would just be like, yeah, that happened. What do you like? I'm not gonna apologize for like if it's like I've never done anything that like I would be worried about getting canceled for. To be honest, I have a pretty clean record. But like if there was something come up like something I said in the past or something like when I was like a minor, I'd be like, yeah, like I'm not a minor anymore. I'm 24. Like it when I was 16, I was a different person than I was now. But I think those situations are a little bit iffy. I think if it's a more recent thing, I think within like 3 to 5 years, definitely a little bit more looked into. But if it's you're like a 25-year-old man and they're looking at messages on like 4chan or like when you were like a 13-year-old kid on like some I really don't think that's like fair to compare anymore. You know what I mean? I think like everyone's kind of changed. But however, if you're out there typing like definitely not appropriate words, definitely some weird things to
No things.
some no things like last week, I think that something should be a little bit more like okay, like I don't think people change that fast. I think there needs to be some reflection. But I do think like people should focus more on canceling people who like have done illegal things like talking to like minors or something that should be more worried than someone saying something maybe a little problematic. You know, I think there's like a different values for that. And I think at the end of the day, one's illegal, one is just kind of a crappy thing to do. And I think we shouldn't let the public court opinion decide on what is or isn't good. I think it should really be that's actually legal talking to like a minor as opposed to just saying something bad. I think it's like a little bit but I think too like people bring cancel culture a little bit too much power because it doesn't really work. There's some people who like some creators, some people in the beauty industry have like done illegal things. People are just like, oh, they got hated on for a little bit. They're fine now. So I think there's like, it's kind of weird. It's like a weird like to know what to do with cancel culture. I think it's like a little bit. It's kind of got the good intent at the start. Now it's kind of like developed into this kind of weird thing where they can't cancel people for saying things they should say, and they're not really focused on like the real issues that are going on. You know. So
Yeah, I think definitely the community they can in like the best times to you or to anyone at least be like your biggest supporters and everything, but they can also be because they support sometimes so much that they can end up being that angry mob when someone says something offensive to you or it's really interesting to see like
yeah.
if generally some very nice people, so nice and supportive, end up being not nice and supportive to someone else. um but I mean that is, always the risk you run with putting yourself as a public figure. So to some people out there who are trying to be content creators or streamers or whatever it may be, just forward facing to media, what is some advice you would give them on kind of navigating that and
Um,
presenting themselves?
Definitely focus on yourself, put out the brand you want, and don't like don't dive in too much to drama unless it's if you want to be drama creator, you can, but understand that once you kind of again like open up that idea of like, oh well, this person is like, if you expose someone else, you're now under a magnifying glass and people are going to look at what you've done. I think everyone has done something not they're not super proud of in their lifetime at some point, whether it be like a variety of different things. But I do think it's important to kind of make sure that you, if you're going to become a content creator, you understand the risks of it as well. There are people that are going to find your address. There are people that are going to like find information about you. Depending on how big you get, people will view you as like a person. They're gonna come look for things about you and information about you. So it is important to understand those risks and understand that if you do it and you have done something crappy, it will eventually probably come out. Like there's only so much you can kind of hide. Like everyone knows everyone, and everyone's one friend away from you. So like no matter what you do, some guy on Facebook knows what you did last summer. You know what I mean? Like no matter
Yeah.
what you've done, somewhere along the line, it's going to kind of come out what you've done, and whether or not you have an audience that kind of like blindly follows you or you don't, it's important to kind of know the risks that come with content creation. Because if you don't become a content creator and you have a really really messed up history, you can just go slide a 9 to 5 somewhere. Like it's not great, but like that is the thing people do. But it is important to understand that if you become a public figure, your whole life's gonna be analyzed from birth to whenever, and people are gonna look at everything you've ever done. People are gonna talk about you because people know you. You can't hide from everyone all the time. So it is important to kind of know the risks of content creation and make sure that you put out something you can be proud of. Don't like kind of falter to the drama or like let other people kind of influence what you're gonna do with your life. It's something important to kind of have a goal in mind and don't let it like waver too much. And definitely don't do crappy things because people will kind of find out. I don't know,
Yeah, I think it's definitely like be true to yourself and
Yeah.
keep that authentic, values of like who you are as part of your content.
Yeah.
I had something else I was about to say, and
Yeah.
I can't remember. Okay, well, we'll just switch. So with everything you do, what is kind of the best part about being a content creator?
I think getting like recognized or like getting like people showing like enjoyment of what you do is really sick. Like having people like you know like at public events like, oh, use cooking. I'm like, oh, what's up, dude? Like that's always a cool thing. Or like having people kind of enjoy your stuff or like know that you are making people laugh. That's always what I've been like my goal to do is make people laugh. So when I'm doing that, that's awesome to hear that I've made people laugh or enjoy whatever I do. That's always the cool part about it, I'd say. And I guess money's awesome as well. But that's probably the cool thing. Is like getting to know people who watch your stuff and they enjoy what you do. You're like, oh, it's awesome. You laughed at it. It's cool. Yeah, so it's probably the best part.
All right, yeah, I think that actually be really cool, because it's
Yeah,
it's almost like you're little mini celebrity, and
yeah,
people
it's
who
definitely
know.
fun. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was gonna say earlier. It's actually really interesting to know that, content creation is so big, but really it is actually really small because everyone knows everyone. So
Hmm.
I think it's really good advice for the younger generation or even people now. Like, definitely don't make your enemies. Be nice, be friendly, or even just
Hmm.
just don't burn bridges. But anyways, so what is kind of on the flip side of the last question, other than editing TikToks, what
Hmm.
is like kind of the worst or most tedious thing about what you do?
I think the most tedious thing is probably like having to look at your statistics, like your analytics, when they're especially like when you have like a bad month or something like that, is definitely like tedious. Like, oh, bro, I don't want to do this, or like the harder part of like planning out certain things and like around content creation. There's a lot of boring planning and a lot of things don't work out depending on your size. Like a lot of things aren't going to work out no matter how hard you try. So you kind of like risk that and planning ideas or a content thing or a collab or whatever. It doesn't work out. It definitely sucks. Like to like do that, to start it out. That's probably the most boring part is like going through and looking at all your analytics and figuring what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. That's definitely really really boring because there's like not always like a right answer. Like try this, try that. It's definitely that's probably the most boring part.
Mhm. Yeah, trial by fire for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that, being recognized is really cool.
Mm.
Um, I did see one of your videos where your username for Valorant was it King BL fan or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten recognized in Valorant by, I guess,
Yeah.
one of your actual fans, not yourself
Yeah.
naming yourself that?
Yeah. Like it happened a few. I had a TikTok where like someone like met me in a game. They were like, "Oh, like it's King BL. I was like, oh yeah, I love that guy. And they're like, oh, like, kind of sound like that guy. I was like, that ain't me, bro. That ain't me. And then they were like, oh, like, no, like, you sound like him, like, a lot like him. I was like, bro, would King BL really make an account called King BL fan? They're like, yeah, no, he would. And I was like, that's really crazy. That's actually crazy. Really, that's really insane. You say that about him. Like, why would you do that? So that was a really fun fan I met. They're really sweet. But yeah, in games sometimes like people will know me from other games like Fortnite. They're like, oh, yo, wait, is that King? I'm like, oh, so no. Like, so that will kind of happen in Valorant. Other games people kind of recognize the name from like Pro Fortnite or whatever we played. So that's happened a few times. It's usually pretty funny. But or like friends will see me and get like, oh, it's King, dude. I don't know. So like it's definitely been that for a while. So that's always like a fun experience. Like seeing friends like I haven't seen like months or years or whatever, just in a game. It's like pretty funny. But yeah.
That must have been actually really, really nice milestone to hit. Be like, you know what? Once I get recognized by random people, like I've made it. Like I'm at this point.
Yeah.
But have you ever like randomly lobbied with any like other content creators that you've been following?
I definitely like I like in Fortnite days I definitely like played against ninjas stuff like that at one point, but it was like very like I was like kind of cringe, so I didn't really like do anything with it. But like I definitely have I've lobbied with some bigger players. Like do you know who C9 Mel is?
Yes.
I played with Mel before, but I was too nervous to talk, so I didn't really say anything. I was like, I didn't want to say anything in the game. Just very, very cool individual. Very, very good. Definitely carried me. I just didn't want to say anything because they're very, very cool. So I've played with some bigger creators, but when I do, I just don't really talk because, like, you know, I'm not really that big in the Valorant scene yet, so it's definitely a little intimidating to play with people like that. So I don't think they knew that they ranked with me, but I definitely have. I think I was in Kaide's game once too, but aside from that, just nothing really notable that like it was like a funny interaction. It was well, I played a lot with I guess Farting Glitter, if you know who that is.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's a good friend of mine, so I played with her a lot before. But randomly lobbied with them, like a couple big players. Just, I didn't really talk though. They didn't really know who I was, so it didn't really matter that much. I didn't want to be like oh, is that Kaide? You know, like it's just kind of like play it cool, you know, act like you don't know, and then kind of go with your day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I probably would have freaked out if it was Kaede. But also be
yeah,
wondering what she's doing in silver lobbies
right,
because
yeah,
she ain't that level.
yeah.
But it's also really cool to see that like like Kaede and Tens they went to UVic. So it's like,
Yeah, that's actually
wow, we
sick.
do
Yeah,
have the local people.
yeah.
But I guess in terms of maybe not randomly lobbying, but other content creators you've worked with or like
Mm.
played games with, I don't want to cause any issues, but do you have any favorites?
Oh God. That's a great question. I
Or
think.
just people you like, maybe not favorites, but
Oh
people
yeah,
you
I think
enjoy.
Glitter's always fun hanging with. My friend Kayla, she's really cool too. I think going to Genesis, like doing the Smash interviews at tournaments was really fun. A lot of those content creators are really cool people like to meet, and I'm glad they like gave me the time of day to hang out with me or like talk to me for a video because it was like a funny mic. So a lot of the Smash players I got to meet are like fans who were pretty cool to talk to. I wouldn't say like favorites. I'd say like um, I've noticed a lot of them are either like completely opposite in person than they put online, or are they like the same kind of like they're like always doing a bit, so it's like hard to kind of know when they're being real or not,
Mm.
which is like the fun part. So I guess I'd have to kind of like get to know more famous people first, like say a favorite. But I think a lot of people in the Smash scene were cool. I think a lot of people in the Valve scene who are like bigger were pretty cool. But yeah, I don't have like a favorite. They're all pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, I
Good
will
answer,
say,
you gotta say first.
yeah. I will say like in looking into you for this panel, I did come
Mm.
across Sergeant Buzzaw's TikTok. And I've been
Yeah.
following her for like since
Oh,
I
I love
got
Buzzo.
TikTok and
Buzzo's is funny, dude.
I was like, oh, I was like it again, it feels like one of those small worlds where it's like, oh, I follow her and I know you're from around my area, and it's like and then
Yeah.
we're talking today and I'm like, huh. It's like
It's
a
crazy,
weird
yeah. Like
yeah.
I think I'm like one of the funny creators who's like a little smaller, but like I know everybody and a lot of people know me. Like I'd say like I know a ton of people and have a lot of cool connections, but I just like I haven't quite hit that like stride yet into like content creation, but I'm still getting there. But it's like I know a ton of people and like a lot of people know me. So it's like that one funny thing where I forget that I know like because to me they're just like I wouldn't say their real name, but like Freddie Glitter is her real name to me. Like I know her as a friend. So like I kind of forget that she's like a massively big Twitch streamer. You know, I don't forget, but it's like, you know, like I just, like this is my homie, so it's like when someone was like, oh, you're president, I'm like, oh yeah, like because she only follows like 100 people or something like that. So
Yeah.
like I forget that like I'm that guy. You know what I mean?
It's
So like it's
no
very
big
easy to
deal.
forget those things. But yeah, like no
Yeah.
biggie. But it's definitely like I forget how many people like get shocked when I say it, like casually like, oh, I know this person. Like, oh, bro, what? Like, what you mean? Like, you know what I mean?
I guess because you are friends, A, it speaks to like the kind of person you are, I think. But also
Yeah.
B, have you ever accidentally doxed any of them?
I have like not. I wouldn't say docs, but it definitely was like a few times of like us playing, me forgetting their streamer mode on. I'm like, hey yo, glitter, pass me that, or like throw me the gun. It's just, bro, what? Like, bro, like, because the whole bit was that she was gonna like come in here and like pretend, like, no, I'm not. And then, oh, is that glitter? Like, wait, it's like farting. You know, it's like I'm like, I'm so sorry, dude. Like, I'll actually say someone's name in game, or like say something about them, and then like everyone knows. I'm like, oh, I have to play it off like a joke now. I have to like pretend I don't know who they are, like, you know, like, or because I forget because it's Valorant stream mode. You don't see their stream mode if they're in your party. So I'll like actually say their name, and be like, oh, yo, pass me that, or like whatever, and then I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry, like, my bad, dude. So
Like, yeah, we're just gonna hope no one noticed what I just
yeah,
said and just no.
yeah. I wouldn't say I necessarily doxed anyone too bad. I think I almost doxed my friend Nick when I was when I went to LA for Genesis. I got to hang out with his friend at my friend's house for a bit, and I think I almost said the address to ask because we were ordering food. So I was like, yo, is it this? And I was like, oh, wait, hold on.
Wait a second.
Pause. Yeah, my bad. So yeah, but nothing super bad, I guess.
All right, that's good. I would really hope that you wouldn't have any stories and like
That would be unlucky. Yeah, that wouldn't be
I
too
would be
great.
like that would be an internal like I'm sorry. And
Yeah,
I know like
yeah.
for other people it'd be like an internal joke, be like, yeah, don't be mean to me, you doxed me, by the way.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry, guys. Like, whoopsies. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's good to hear.
Hmm.
But I guess, I guess you used to travel a little bit for events and stuff. So
Yeah.
how has COVID-19 affected, I guess, your
Dude.
career in general? Okay,
It
well,
sucks, bro. Because I like that's why I even started doing gaming again. Because I was initially gonna go like, oh, talk show host time, and then I was gonna travel and do all these tournaments, and then COVID hit, and I couldn't go anywhere. So I was like, oh, I got to like I love gaming, but I was like, I have to game again, like because I was planning on like that's the thing I want to transition to later in life is like a talk show host when I'm older. But like I had this whole thing planned with YouTube. I was just going to do interviews and stuff everywhere, but then like I couldn't go anywhere because of COVID. So like that kind of slowed down momentum a lot, which is like why I've been just kind of like coasting until I kind of plan with the other stuff first, like the other YouTube videos. So that's why I'm like this. I'm doing the 100-hour stuff for 6 months, and hopefully after that, COVID's reached a place where it's a little bit more like chill enough that I can travel without worrying. Because I actually got COVID like recently, for the first time. I never had it before. It sucked, dude. I was like I guess I'll be in the Valorant 100-hour video. I'll probably make an hour video out of it because it's gonna be sick. But I got COVID like randomly. I never got it before. Like the whole time I'd been chill. I traveled to different places. I've been fine. And then I go to like a local tournament and I get COVID. And I was like, dude, what are the chances? Like that's so unlucky. Like it's so unlucky, dude. So that definitely sucked.
oh. Yeah, I want to say I heard about that. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I was like, I hope you're not doing too bad. I hope it's
It
not like
was
just
it
death.
wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I was double vaccinated, so I was mostly fine. But it was definitely like it sucked, like because I had all this planned that I was so tired, like sick and like nauseous to like do anything. Because I just thought it was a flu. Because I was like I never get sick. Maybe it's just one of those things that finally caught up with me. But it's so unlucky that like because I was at Battle of BC, so like I was there and that's where I got it. I think just came back and I was just sick and I was like bro, because like I don't know who I dabbed up. A lot of people dabbed me up, so I have no idea who it was. But I was the only one in my house to get it, which is unlucky. I guess it's probably the benefit though that I got it as opposed to my roommates because they both worked with labor jobs in person. So if they got it, I most definitely would get it because they have to go outside. They would spread it like there's no way they can sit inside all day. But for me, I stream and make content right now, so like I was able to sit in my room all day and just order food. So like it was probably the best person in the house to get it. There's a very chance that they didn't end up getting it. It was just me. So like kind of good in that way, I guess. But it definitely did suck to have COVID. So yeah,
Mm. I guess how are you feeling now? Do you have any of the after
um,
effects?
I definitely there's still like a hard cough when I wake up or like in the morning, but it's definitely get to the point where like I don't feel like I have COVID anymore. I feel like I'm mostly fine. I have like a lot of energy again, which is awesome. That was the biggest thing that sucked was like the lack of energy because I was like I had this 100-hour thing I got to do. I have a deadline I want to get it done by, and now I'm like I can't even get out of bed kind of thing. I was like, bro, like I'm so sick. So that definitely sucked. It felt like it felt sad to like have this super cool idea, like a super cool original idea for 100-hour stuff, and then like be so burnt out from like not like mental health but just physical. Like I was like, bro, I can't get out of bed. Like I have to make TikToks. I was like, I can't like find the energy to do it. So that really sucked. It slowed down a lot, but like it's good now. I think I'm chilling now, but just a cough, I guess, here and there. But aside from that, we're pretty good.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't guilt yourself too much for literally having COVID and being physically and mentally
It
unable.
was really rough, yeah. Well, because it's like I had taken the whole month prior to like work on finishing like semester of school and like other stuff. So I was like, this was like the time I was like, I have to do this. I don't have a choice now to do it. And then it's like COVID, just like constant random obstructions. I'm like, bro, please, like, bro, please, come on, man, like, I'll
Like,
make
come on,
some
just
funny.
let me do something
Come
I
on,
like.
bro. Yeah.
Don't
So that
kick
kind of,
me.
I'm saying, yeah, that kind of sucked, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of coming near our end, so it's probably going to
Yeah,
be
for
the
sure.
last question, unless anyone in chat has questions. So
Yeah,
for
for
sure
sure.
add those. So you said your future aspirations is talk show. Is there
Mm.
any like talk show you'd want to be on, or I guess like
Oh,
what does that look like? Want to create your own
it
show?
I don't. It probably like a mix, like inspiration, like Eric Andre, like Jimmy Kimmel, stuff like that. Like it'd be like a kind of a funny talk show like that. Like I've run some like funny dating shows, I guess, similar to that on my stream before. I probably want another one like next month, but something similar to that. Definitely like more like jokes, not too serious, not like, but not also too like like give the guests like a chance to speak about stuff too. So like it'd be like a good mix of like funny, but also like give them a chance to talk about whatever they're doing in life, like whatever actor. I think I definitely would want to like get on one of talk shows like that one day. I'd have to like get a lot more famous first though, but like it'd be cool to definitely have that kind of experience, like venture into that kind of entertainment business, I guess. But it'd definitely be like a mix of stuff. It'd be really funny though, I promise. So
All right, definitely keep an eye out
yeah.
for that. But
Yeah, for sure.
is there anyone like at this moment that you would love to collab with?
Oh, like a streamer?
Any, I'm
Oh,
gonna say anyone.
to be honest, like I think a really fun person for like the Apex thing I'm gonna do next month would be like it's Timmy, because
Ah,
like I know he's talked. I might shoot my shot in, like a DM after I make a video and be like, yo, like because I know he's talked about how he wanted to play with someone who's never played Apex before. Like although I admit like the Valorant one was kind of just a test of concept because I already played Valorant a lot. I actually have 1 hour in Apex. I don't know the game. Like I don't know. So it's actually gonna be me literally learning the game. So I think that'd be really interesting to play with someone who, because he's talking about how he wants to play with someone who doesn't know the game and like kind of experience teaching them, which I get is like a really cool experience. It'd be so cool to teach someone a game because he like every streamer he plays with, he mentioned that like they're either a small streamer that lies about having experience, so they just can like kind of farm some viewers because they're like, oh, I don't know how to play, and then they play and they're like cracked, or they're like another streamer who's already big and they kind of know how to play the game as well. He wants like someone who's small with like low view count who does not know the game. So I'm like, oh, I fit the role perfectly because he wants to kind of do that as content and teach someone. Because I actually don't know I played like an hour of Apex. And the hour I played was like half time in lobby, half time like dying. So like I don't know Apex. I'm sure I could learn. I'm great at learning games quickly, but it'd be sick to like collab with someone super big in the scene and kind of teach me the game a little bit.
mhm.
So
Yeah. Apex is definitely really fun. It's a bit of
yeah,
a learning curve, but I
for
take it
sure.
as like just Fortnite without the building. It's still pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it
Yeah.
should be fun.
Yeah, I think if anything, what I've learned from like all of these panels and talking to a bunch of creators and people in marketing, it's just definitely shoot that shot. I
Absolutely.
People, I mean, why not? You know,
Definitely.
you're never
Yeah.
gonna know if you don't try, and I think that's kind of a lot of the messaging for everyone is just try it out. You have like usually about 82 years to live. Take a year,
Usually.
take 2 years, figure it out
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
figure out what you want to do. But yeah, that kind of brings us to about the end because we're at the hour mark for this panel.
Hmm.
Do you have any kind of advice for people or any kind of closing statements or
Um.
things you want to plug?
Oh yeah, for sure. You guys can find me Twitch King BL, YouTube King BL. My Twitter is like King B Leonard because I couldn't get the at, and same with TikTok at King B Leonard. I'm taking like a week off right now to make the YouTube video, but I'll be back on like July maybe like 8th or 9th to. Oh, I also got to take a few days off to make I got to do the photo shoot for the clothing coming out soon. But I can't say the name of it here because it is a bit of it's a bad word for the idea of the merch, but I promise it's worth it. So definitely check that out on all my social media. You can just type King BL or use King and find me anywhere. And make sure you use King the Epic Game Store #ad. But yeah, that's about it. I'll be back with Apex, I guess, next month. So until then, I'm just gonna like be editing the video and working on the merch. So yeah.
All right. Okay, so thank you, Brendan, for
Yep.
sitting down with the hour, talking to us, letting everyone know kind of what your
Yeah.
experience has been as a bit of the smaller content creator.
Hmm.
Definitely, if everyone wants to follow you, support you, you know, be on the lookout for the merch. Merch is always
Absolutely. Yeah.
March is
Be
always
sick.
great. So go follow him, support him. That does bring us to our end. So we will be back in about a half hour with our next and final panel of the day, and that will be the collegiate club panel. So we'll be sitting down with some of the collegiate leaders, speaking about what their schools do, what their clubs do, and kind of what they want to do in the future. So we will see you guys in a half hour. Thank you.